The storm rolled over the sleepy town of Blackwood, Maine, as power lines flickered and the streets went dark. In the silence, a stranger walked down Main Street, his pale face hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. Few noticed him, but those who did felt an unease they couldn't explain. That night, screams echoed through alleys, and by morning, 2 shopkeepers were missing. Blood smeared the cobblestones, yet no bodies were found. Rumors spread of wild animals, but the claw marks and eerie silence hinted at something darker. The stranger checked into a rundown motel, always awake at night, never seen by day. Whispers began in diners and gas stations. Blackwood hadn't seen this much fear since the old legends of blood drinkers told by the elders. The drifter's cold gaze lingered too long on the living, and though no one dared confront him, the entire town felt his presence like a curse in the thick pine forests surrounding Blackwood. For teenagers dared each other to explore after hearing of the disappearances. The woods felt alive with whispers, every crunch of leaves sending chills down their spines. They stumbled upon trees slashed with unnatural claw marks, bark torn deep as though by something massive. Not far from the markings, they discovered bones, small animal remains, cracked open and drained, with not a trace of flesh. Fear gripped them, but curiosity was stronger. As they pressed deeper, one of them, Daniel, lagged behind. A shadow moved silently, faster than their eyes could track. A muffled cry broke the quiet, but when the group turned back, Daniel was clutching his arm, pale as snow. Blood trickled down his sleeve, but he dismissed it as a scratch from a branch. They hurried back to town, laughing nervously to cover their fear, but deep inside, each one knew something unnatural had touched their friend. Daniel's condition grew stranger with each passing night. At first, it was small. He stopped eating meals and stayed in his room all day, saying the light hurt his eyes. Then came the whispers. His sister heard him talking to someone at midnight, but his room was empty except for him. His skin turned icy cold, veins darkening beneath the surface as though shadows ran through his blood. When his mother confronted him, his eyes flickered red for a moment, and he pushed her away with inhuman strength. The hunger soon became unbearable. Daniel snuck out and returned with stains around his lips, though he swore he had been with friends. He couldn't explain the metallic taste he craved or why his heart raced whenever he saw someone's neck. By the 3rd night, the town knew something unnatural was happening. Daniel wasn't just sick, he was changing, and whatever he was becoming terrified even him. When the storms knocked out power again, the townspeople sought comfort in the church, believing it to be a sanctuary. Candles flickered against the stained glass windows, and whispers of prayer filled the air. Father Matthews urged calm, assuring everyone they were safe within holy walls. But safety was an illusion. The heavy wooden doors groaned open, and the pale drifter entered, rainwater dripping from his coat. At first, no one moved, frozen by his piercing gaze. Then, a woman screamed as his teeth flashed white in the candlelight. Panic erupted, pews overturned, and blood sprayed against the altar as he struck. People tried to flee, but the exits were blocked by shadows. Others like him had followed. The church bells tolled eerily as screams echoed, drowning out prayers. By the time silence fell, the holy place was no longer sacred. Those who survived scattered into the storm, carrying fear that would never fade. Just when hope seemed lost, a convoy rolled into Blackwood, old trucks, armed men and women with scars, silver stakes, and crucifixes. They introduced themselves as hunters from New Orleans, sworn to destroy the ancient evil stalking the town. Their leader, a weathered man named Carter, revealed the drifter's identity. Lucien, a centuries-old vampire king who once ruled in Europe before vanishing. Carter warned the townspeople that Lucien didn't travel alone. His coven always followed, and once they claimed a town, no one escaped unmarked. The hunters set traps, sprinkled holy water, and armed survivors with wooden stakes. Fear turned into defiance as townsfolk clung to the hunters' promises. But even as preparations began, Carter whispered a chilling truth. Lucien could not be killed easily. He fed on fear itself, and every drop of blood spilled only made him stronger. Blackwood was no longer just prey, it had become a battlefield. The infection spread like wildfire. Daniel was no longer the only one showing signs of the bite. Shopkeepers, police officers, and even children vanished, only to return days later with pale skin and hunger in their eyes. Neighbors turned on each other, unsure who was still human. The hunters tried to control the chaos, but every fight ended with more bitten and fewer alive. The once busy streets of Blackwood were now deserted, filled with the echo of footsteps that belonged to no living soul. At night, the town was alive with hissing and laughter from the shadows, the coven growing stronger by the hour. Survivors gathered in hidden basements, whispering of escape, but Lucien's influence reached everywhere. It wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. It was a fight against becoming one of them. Every choice meant life, death, or damnation. The curse of the bite was spreading, and there was no cure. The hunters and the last surviving townspeople chose Raven Hill, an abandoned factory on the edge of town, as their battleground. With its rusted pipes and broken windows, it became a fortress, armed with fire, silver, and traps meant for monsters. As the sun set, the air thickened with dread. Shadows moved on the horizon, dozens of vampires approaching with inhuman speed. The battle erupted in a storm of screams and gunfire. Silver stakes pierced flesh, fire consumed the night, and holy water sizzled against pale skin. Yet Lucien moved like a phantom, his strength unstoppable, cutting down hunters one by one. Carter led the charge, refusing to bow to centuries of evil, even as his men fell. Blood ran through the factory floor, but so did courage. For the first time, humanity struck back with fury. Knowing this was their last chance to reclaim the night, or be swallowed by it, morning came, but the sun felt hollow. Lucien's body lay in ashes, burned by fire and pierced by a silver stake through his heart. The hunters declared victory, and for a moment, relief washed over the survivors. The curse seemed broken, and Blackwood, though scarred, could breathe again. Yet, as the hunters packed their weapons, one girl, Sarah, clutched her arm beneath her jacket, hiding the wound no one had seen. Her skin paled, her reflection in a broken mirror wavered, and when she looked up, her eyes glowed faintly red. She forced a smile, blending with the others, but deep inside, hunger was rising. As the convoy rolled out of town, leaving behind the ruins of Blackwood, Sarah whispered a name only she could hear, Lucien. The ashes stirred in the wind, carrying the promise that the curse of the bite was never truly gone. The night had claimed its heir.